A few months ago, I began a new chapter in my PC gaming setup by deciding to switch to the Radeon after using Nvidia for over a decade. In this video, we are going to discuss the issues and things to keep in mind if you are also considering making the transition. In the past, I've primarily used lower-end GPUs for my channel, such as the GTX 970 for benchmarks and light video rendering, similar to the videos I usually upload. However, I also got the RTX 3070 MSIX Trio, a high-end GPU, which you can check out in a video on how it performs with a budget i5 on my channel as well. I want to make it clear that I didn't really have any major issues with Nvidia or any of previous Nvidia cards that I owned. Everything worked fine for the most part. Performance as well as temps were also good, at least with the models that I owned. However, I always wonder if the Radeon cards are really as bad as some claims them to be. I had seen tons of comments mentioning how bad the drivers are. Even friends who never owned a Radeon GPU would tell me that AMD cards are unreliable, run extremely hot, etc. All of which are things that you most likely heard as well. So as someone who enjoys messing around with computers and reviewing hardware, I made the decision to switch to Radeon and find out if AMD cards are in fact a bad investment. I often check out GPU benchmarks and comparisons to see how they perform, especially when an older card becomes the new budget king. That's exactly what's happened when I stumbled upon RX 5600 XT. The RX 5600 XT was the 6GB mid-range cards of AMD's first RDNA series GPUs, launched on beginning 2020. Release price in the US was $279 at launch. Like all good Polaris series like RX 580, these first-gen RDNA cards are finding their way to the used market in large quantities, having been sold off and massive by ex-crypto miners. You can grab one on AliExpress as well as on eBay, and that's exactly where I got mine. Triple fan ASRock Challenger Pro OC version. Thanks God I had no problem with this card. It came with the original box and accessories. The owner was a light user, also first owner of this card, and used it for only YouTube and web browsing, which is a big W for me. Fans have no noise and temps are very good under load. I will admit it took some time getting used to new graphics card and adrenaline software. Things just didn't feel right initially, but after messing around with the software and checking a few guides, within a week or two, I got used to the interface and completely forgot that I switched to Radeon. I really love the adrenaline software. You got everything you need with all the settings laid out nicely and clean interface, plus you don't even need to sign in. It's just awesome. Nvidia, take notes. Okay, now let's talk about the issues that I run into using the Radeon GPU during these months. I've been updating to nearly every single driver release, and I came across one bad driver out of about 10. What would basically happen in some games and applications would crash shortly after launch. Thankfully, a bad driver doesn't mean a dead GPU, so it's not a huge problem. All I had to do was simply roll back the drivers by uninstalling bad ones using DDU and installing whatever I had before. Bad drivers aren't exclusively a Radeon thing, unlike some might think. This can happen regardless of whatever you are using, AMD or Nvidia. I mean, just look at their driver release notes. Both companies are constantly fixing problems, and sometimes the new driver releases can introduce new bugs and issues, which isn't uncommon. The rest of the problems aren't really as significant, but at least I didn't have them with Nvidia. Other than these issues though, that I don't find to be disastrous, I've been quite happy with my 5600 XT. Whenever we talk about playing games, recording gameplay footage using Relive, editing photos and videos, everything's been running perfectly stable without any blue screens and driver issues or anything like that. Of course, I don't necessarily mean that the Radeon is perfect in every way. I just expected things to be much worse because of unbelievably negative feedback online, which honestly gives me an impression that the majority of people complaining about poor performance and driver problems with Radeon are like the ones to blame for not knowing how to properly install GPU drivers, for example, because I've seen plenty of positive comments from Radeon users as well who didn't have any issues. For those of you wondering, the reason I went for the 5600 XT and not something more powerful is because my goal here wasn't to upgrade, rather to see how Radeon stacks up against Nvidia's at the given price, and so far I'm quite impressed. The RX 5600 XT could be exactly the budget 1080p card that the market needs in 2024, and I'll show you why. Recently, Nvidia 6GB cards have been receiving a lot of attention, dominating in the Steam Hardware and Software Survey 2024 and earlier. Cards like GTX 1060, GTX 1660 Ti, and RTX 2060 are considered the top options, all boasting 6GB VRAM. I'll be comparing my RX 5600 XT against them in terms of price, performance, and more. Let's find out which GPU emerges as the greatest option for you, whether Nvidia still deserves the 6GB crown. So before I bought this card, I saw these couple videos and I right away started digging more about RX 5600 XT because I was so surprised. Starting in 1660 Ti, which is absolutely better than 1060 6GB, I think there's no need to show you a comparison between 5600 XT and 1060. This video will tell you everything and you will lose sympathy for them. As you can see, AMD is better in this battle and definitely crushing 1660 Ti with good FPS. I want to point out 5600 XT came out in 2020 when 2060 and 6060 Ti came out in 2019. 1060 even came out in 2016 or something like that. So I think it will have much longer driver support and they will optimize it better. RTX 2060 is the first gen RT card and it's quite popular on Steam Hardware. People like to have ray tracing on budget and explore this feature, but we have to say that Nvidia cards overpriced for this very reason. They are in high demand which raises their price, and they even cost more than 5600 XT. But once again, you can see they are not matched for Radeon. Of course, there are some games where 2060 and 5600 XT get similar FPS, but AMD has better performance in most scenarios and titles. If you are not playing VRAM hungry games, 5600 XT will feel comfortable and leave you impressed as if you are rocking more VRAM, because I have seen some videos when it performs in some games like S2070. And talking about more VRAM, for Nvidia fanboys who thinks new is always better, I have here 3050 8GB compared to 5600 XT, which came out this year and has 8GB VRAM. It is very sad to see a GPU perform worse than its predecessor, even if it has more VRAM. So sorry Nvidia lovers, you get another L here. I'm very glad that I got this GPU for $100 and it outperforms everything mentioned above. If you are a budget baller and have an i3 like I have one for my test bench, here's how your FPS gonna look like. Remember, this GPU can support PCI 4.0, but here we have CPU limitation because it's 10th gen and it only supports 3.0. Also, the CPU is a little bottlenecked by GPU sometimes, and if you have an 11th or higher gen budget CPU, you'll get better FPS. In conclusion, I believe that in terms of both price and performance, we have to give the crown to this 6GB card, despite its unpopularity among people who still believes that buying AMD results in immediate errors. I strongly recommend purchasing this card over the mentioned ones. As for a sub $100 option, the RX 5600 XT of course, and this concludes the discussion. Additionally, I've been frequently asked lately, which is the best card for the lowest price? I want to share something with you. The answer is, there is no single best inexpensive card, nor the ultimate GPU. The best GPU for you will be the one you can afford at the moment. What's the most important is to deeply understand your chosen card, how it operates, and how to optimize its potential. This will ultimately be the best option for you. Thank you for watching. I wish you the best of luck in acquiring the GPUs you always wanted, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.